I saw a TikTok crackhead today. Like I was walking down the streets like of California with my dog, like downtown San Diego, if we want to be precise, in the early morning, and the streets now like are full of homeless. Like it's bad. It's been like especially bad since COVID. And you see normal people on the street, people like you and I. People don't give a shit. The US is turning into a dictatorship. Anyway, I was walking down the street as usual, to find some patches of grass for my dog to alleviate herself, when I saw this guy. Near my house there's like this help center for the homeless, and some of these people like established themselves outside the building with their tents. I was sleepy and distracted, but like I couldn't help but notice this blast of nonsensical noise, coming from somewhere. Like this incessant blast of digital noise. It was laughs, it was cries, screams, like cartoon, like goofy ass sound effects. It got me out of my element. Like I think my dog seemed disturbed. And I paid attention with my ears and I saw that it came like ahead in the street. I had already seen some people with their phones, like people living in the street, and I just found it interesting to say the least, because it wasn't like this back then. And this noise, this motherfucking noise, was coming distinctively from the speaker of a phone. Like I could tell somebody had fallen into that infinite doom of scrolling their finger atop of screen. I could tell that so distinctive and unmistakable disastrous orchestra of nonsensical, stimulating, and non-sequential series of sounds. And I went on ahead. I didn't want to discriminate, and I didn't want to seem like an asshole. Normally, I neither look nor avoid the sight of the people that have ended up in these conditions, because every time I got to really know them, they were always lucid and extremely kind. They always gave importance to the important stuff, to human connection. But this fucking white noise of death, like I couldn't tolerate it this time. I felt like I was getting poisoned myself just by listening to it. Like I was getting infected by brain rot just by listening to that sound. And I couldn't tolerate the idea of it giving a bad influence to the people staying around there and to the people that were passing by. So I said to myself, I'm going to say something respectfully to this guy or this gal, and I go nearer. And that's when I saw him. He was fast asleep, laid on top of a dark sleeping bag, despite all of the noise. It was his kid that was on the phone. Like their shoulders and back were bent like a half circle, like a fetus, with the umbilical cord of the device attached to a plug in the wall. Feeding it, and also the device that was laid in the father's asleep hand. I think this kid was like 3 years or so. 3 years old. And I couldn't stand the view. I felt something inside of me die. Their eyes were like swollen, and red. And they sat atop two large bags, and dripping wet with the tears out of the irritation of their eyes, which were filled with crusts. Like the eyes of the child were jumping from one corner of the screen to the next, from one app to the other, at the velocity of light, from TikTok to YouTube to Roblox to TikTok back again, in a matter of like 10 seconds. And their eyes were like empty, and incoherent, like disassociated to reality. You could tell their soul had been drained out from their eyes. The baby was completely unaware of their surroundings, as they swiped and tapped and swiped back again. I couldn't stand the view. I was suddenly like overwhelmed and filled by the most terrible dread about humanity, of unhope for the future. And you could tell that by that point the undeveloped brain of that child was unplugged to the phone by that point as if it were like attached to a life device of a hospital. Like it only took a moment for the screen to go black for them to be crushed by the overwhelming weight of reality and their nonsensical inner mental noise, that monologue, those flow of nonsensical thoughts. It only took a brief moment of non-stimulation for their undeveloped brain to go insane. I had to escape. Like, I turned around and ran back home. Like, I looked at my dog and I was kind of alleviated by her distraction and, like having been spared the sight of the state of the world we're living in, the current state of humanity and of these future generations. I can only suppose the guy sleeping was in his early 30s, and alone in the world, left like with a renegated child. So I guess he just gave them a phone instead. I cannot even begin to imagine the inner world of that undeveloped project of a human being, like being hijacked so violently of their sole resource, their attention, and getting their mind raped at such a young age, like with no forewarning, no restriction. Like, I went back home, back up the street, and after a brief moment of grief and hesitation, I just had to disinstall all of that shit with those short videos. I couldn't stand the mental sight, the view of these mentally raped children growing up and ruling the world, being our future politicians and teachers and influences, and the view of a world infested in a couple of years or so of a crack land of TikTok heads.